Audace, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Pray podcast today.
Wonderful. Hello, Chris. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for
Thank you.
having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So, can you give myself and the audience a little bit of background about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm a part of the safety net team at the National Network to End Domestic Violence. And what we do is we focus on the intersection of abuse and all things technology. We provide technical assistance and training nationally and internationally to service providers and local programs. What we do on our team is we focus on how technology is misused by abusers, how survivors can use strategies for using technology safely because it's so intertwined into every aspect of our life. And we focus on how survivors can safely relocate as well. We talk about how survivors can keep their data safe. We're in a data-driven
Mhm.
society. So it's really important that we put that information out there around consumer privacy, about how their information is shared and put on websites as well. As how abusers can misuse that information, and also how agencies can safely and effectively use technology because they're gathering a lot of data from survivors, and we want to make sure that they're using it in the best way.
Awesome. And how did you
Yeah.
get into this field?
Sure. So I started out doing this work many, many years ago. Over 20 years ago, I started out working with survivors of domestic violence with disabilities. I was working at a local program in New York called Barrier Free Living, where I was an advocate working with survivors, helping them, get housing and the resources and support that they needed. I then started working with young people between the age of 16 to 24 who were impacted by teen dating violence, and then moved into the space of technical assistance and training. I started training adult professionals such as social workers, advocates, teachers, anyone that worked directly with teen survivors. I trained them on how young people are impacted by sex trafficking. Domestic minor sex trafficking is a huge issue within our society. It's something that we don't talk about often because we look at it as an international issue, but young people right here in many states in the United States are being impacted by trafficking. And when we think about trafficking, we think of a person being moved from state to state. Trafficking can be happening right in the local community.
Mhm.
That young person or that adult can be going to school, going to work, and still, be under the power and control of a trafficker. So I was working in that space, and then I moved into this very interesting space where I focus on the intersection between technology and abuse at the National Network to End Domestic Violence. All of the I want not all of them, but the majority of the cases that I worked on, when I was a advocate providing direct services, the majority of them had some form of tech abuse, whether it was damaging a person's phone, preventing them from using the internet, preventing them from going to school or logging into their accounts, committing fraud, whatever it was, there was some form of tech misuse. So now to be on this end and to be able to, provide guidance and training and information to those who are supporting survivors, it's really an honor. So yeah, that's a little bit of my story. I mean, in a nutshell, I wrapped it up really short.
I'm glad there are people like you that are in this field and really trying to help people out that are probably in some of the lowest, kind of the worst part of their life and the
Yeah.
experience. How prevalent is this issue?
Wow. So we did a study in 2020, and we released it at the end of 2020. No, at the beginning of 2021, we released it. And we spoke with some advocates and attorneys that worked directly with survivors. And the majority of their feedback, what they reported back, is that 97% of their cases had to do with some form of tech abuse,
Oh, wow.
whether it was preventing the survivor from using their device, stalking them, monitoring them. It's an overwhelming, we received an overwhelming response. So the numbers are really high, but let me just say, when it comes to issues such as this, there's a lot of underreporting. I'm not sure why it's not at 100% because,
Yeah.
again, technology is intertwined into so many areas of our lives. If an abuser, if the abuser is familiar with, intimate details about the survivors, such as their parents' maiden name, or where they went to school. It's kind of easy to guess those security questions and
Yeah.
log into accounts and cause a lot of harm. So a lot of the misuse is not reported. A lot of domestic violence cases are not reported as well, just in general. So I think there's a lot of underreporting, but that study that we did was, really revealing as to like what's happening, day to day with survivors throughout the country and the world.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How, in general, how underreported is domestic violence in and of itself?
Well, it's really
I mean,
it's
it's kind of
it's
hard to
mind blowing.
know. It's kind of hard to know if something isn't being reported, but kind of what is the theory on how unreported it is?
Yeah, well, it's unreported because that person that is controlling the relationship, they're the one that is most likely controlling who that person talks to, who they share with. If that survivor is living in the same household with that abuser and relies on financial resources or support, or they have children in common, and then maybe the survivor cannot afford to move out or get their own housing or job, they're going to remain in that situation for the sake of, maybe keeping their family together,
Hmm.
or because they just cannot afford to relocate. Housing is really expensive. If you think about, what it costs to, get an apartment or, relocate. Those are some of the barriers that prevent survivors from reporting. Also, so lots of underreporting, and this is not anything new. Um, Survivors, have remained silent because there's a lot of shame and blame
Yeah.
connected to this issue. It's not something that people are happy to share about. So it's really important that we um, provide people with the space to share that they're having this experience, because it's something that it's hidden. It's hidden in plain sight, actually.
Hmm. So, how is tech being used maliciously against domestic abuse and abuse people, victims?
Sure. So, Chris, what I want to clarify to you and your audience is that tech is not the problem, right? Technology does a lot of great things, right? The fact that I'm here today with you, being interviewed, which is a connection that technology made, right? It's not about the technology; it's about the misuse of
Hmm.
technology, right? So it's the person behind the technology that's causing the harm. So we have to keep that in mind. Technology can be used to empower survivors. Survivors can go to school, they can find jobs, they can use it to, start a business. They can use technology for so many different things, right? The issue is the abuse and the behaviors that are used to maintain that power and control. So some ways that technology is being used to cause harm is harassment, right? Calling that person various times, sending them threatening messages, leaving multiple voice messages, threatening them, monitoring their actions online, committing fraud, logging into their accounts, right? Changing passwords, not allowing them to access Wi-Fi, right? Impersonation, pretending to be someone else, pretending to be the survivor, and connecting to family members, shaming
Mm.
them, sharing, personal information. A lot of things that we are seeing. Something that we've been seeing a lot is the non-consensual intimate image sharing, NCII. Folks may have heard of this online or in the news as revenge porn. We do not consider it revenge porn because it's not about revenge or about porn. It's not porn usually. It's the violation of someone's rights, their
Hmm.
body, their image, taking that image and sharing it without their consent. We see that a lot, and a really great place that survivors can go if they're having this type of issue where their image has been shared without their consent, or if someone created a image, a deep fake, that's what they call it, a deep fake, an image with your face and another person's body. You can go to a website called stopncii.org. Stopncii.org is a free service, and it's a tool that is used by various platforms. And what they do is they, allow you to upload your photo and have that photo removed from any website So Stop NCII is a website that it's a free tool, and what survivors can do is they can go to that website and create a case where if any one of the partnering tech companies that are on that platform, I believe it's Meta, Snap, Instagram, and a few others. Pornhub, I believe, is on there as well. If any of the survivors' images have been uploaded to any one of those websites, any one of those social media platforms or sites, they would send that image to one of those partnering companies and have that image removed. So it's a really great tool. StopNCII.org. It's something that is free and available to survivors, and I think it's really important that we share that, because a lot of times survivors feel like they're alone, and again, the shame and blame that's connected to this issue, it's everywhere.
Yeah. I think that
Yeah.
is a great resource. I wasn't aware of it, so
Yeah.
we'll make sure that we link to that in the show notes as well.
Yes, thank you.
So, what can individuals do, survivors of abuse do to, or people that are currently in those situations? What are some of the things that they can do to secure their devices, their accounts, and try to mitigate that control um, and those aspects?
Sure. So the first thing that we always share is that survivors should trust their instincts, right? Again, technology is intertwined into so many areas of our lives, and the survivor may be feeling like, am I not experiencing this? Am I experiencing this? They may be uncertain and unsure about what is happening. They should trust their instincts, right? And they should think about what is happening. What information does the abuser know, right? Did they have access to their home, to their vehicle, to their account? How did they gain access to that account, right? You want to think about all of those different things. And once you finish gathering that information, you want to then start thinking about how you can secure your device if it is safe to do so. Again, some survivors may be living with the abuser. So, what may be right for a survivor that is not living with the abuser may not be right for the survivor that has left the situation. So, you definitely want to gauge for risks. We have a really great resource on our website on securing devices, but some really high level things that a survivor can do, if it's safe to do so, is not use non-identifying names, usernames, right? Don't use your first name and your last name. Use something that the abuser may not guess, because through a quick search online, they may be able to locate you, right?
Yeah.
So if you use non-identifying usernames, that may be able to, and maybe not a image of yourself, right? Maybe an image of maybe a stock photo or something like that. If you're maybe you have an online business, or you want to be online, but you just don't want anyone to identify you or connect you to that image. So use non-identifying names, use strong passwords. And I know that this may sound very basic, but tech experts recommend that we use phrases and not things like our birthday or
Yeah.
our mother's maiden name, right? Use a sentence like, I need a vacation right now, or, I love vegetables 2020, hashtag, something that the abuser will not be able to easily guess. So strong passwords are a must. Another thing is two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication allows for a person that has an account to set it up in a way where if someone else is trying to log in, or when you're trying to log in, there's a secondary email or a secondary phone number where a short code is usually sent to verify that it's you trying to log into that account. So setting that up could notify you if someone is trying to hack into your account. So those are just some basic things that survivors can do. Updating passwords, and also I just want to say that survivors, if it's safe to do so, they can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is 800-799-7233. There, survivors can connect with a professional that is trained and that will be able to connect them to an advocate in their local community that could support them with safety planning. Safety planning is really important. You don't have to be ready to leave the relationship. It can be, something that you're planning to do maybe a couple of months from now, a year
Hmm.
from now. But it's a it's a relationship that you can, build with an advocate that can help you navigate your situation. You are the person that is in control, and you provide them with the information, and they'll help you create a plan.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
I know one of the contexts that kind of the situations that arise that we hear about with on what is myapudress.com is people concerned that someone is tracking their location, that my abuser
Mhm.
or my ex or
Mhm.
this spurned love interest.
Yes.
They know where, they know when I'm going to the grocery store, they're
Yes.
showing up. I'm out with my friends, somehow they're showing up at the same restaurant. They're like, okay, what in the world is going on? How are they tracking me? And what the heck should I be doing about that? What
Yes.
should people be doing in that situation?
Yes, that is something that is really common. I mean, our devices can serve as tracking devices, right? We share information inadvertently. So we want to first think about, where does that information live? How did they gain access to that information? Um, so what I would first suggest is for that survivor to think about, where does that information live? How would this person know that I'm showing up at the grocery store on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. after I get off of work, right? Is that person following me? Is there something attached to my vehicle? Is there a child in common that may have shared that, this is
Hmm.
my routine? Did I post this online on social media? Where does that information live, right? So once you think about those things, it's important to then figure out how you can well, depending on what you want to do with that, it
Yeah.
depends on what you want to do with that information, but you first need to figure out where that information lives. Again, I know that there are a lot of survivors that are connected to family plans, right?
Yep.
Is there a family plan that shares the location? And does the abuser still have access to that, right? Let's say that the survivor didn't drive to the supermarket and they used a ride sharing app, right? Ride sharing apps send receipts to emails, right? So if that rideshare app sent the receipt to my email showing that I go to the supermarket on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. and the abuser has access to my email, they can clearly see that I've relocated. This is where I'm going. This is the time that I'm showing up there. So where is this information? Where does it live? Did a child in common overhear that I was going to this location and share it with the person that's being abusive? Where does it live?
Hmm.
How did they gain access to it? So that's the first thing. I know that people are really familiar and aware of trackers. Trackers are something that's been in the news. Uh, I want to say within the past 2 years. Trackers. Well,
For
yes.
good, again, it's a technology, good and bad, but there's lots of trackers beyond AirTags.
Yes, there are lots of trackers beyond AirTags, and Apple has actually done a really great job with setting up notifications. Right, every time that a device is near a person or on a person, it'll send the person a alert. So that is something that's really important and should be across industry standards, because sometimes other trackers could be tracking you and you have no idea. Right.
App from Apple that will alert you on your Android device if there's an
Yes.
if there is an if let me get the phrasing right, if there's an AirTag uh, moving along with you, and the owner of the AirTag is not also moving along with you, like they're in the car with you,
Right.
then it
Right.
will alert you to, hey, there's a device around you, which is
Yes.
awesome that Apple has
Yes.
been thoughtful of. Just because someone's
Absolutely.
not using our branded hardware, we're still going to alert people
Yes.
of this
Which
issue.
is which is wonderful. FYI, Chris, this is a pause. They are allowing us to, share these thoughts and, concerned, because there are a lot of there are a lot of other companies
Yeah.
that are not so concerned. So yes, we also want to remember that it's not just these trackers that you can purchase on at the store. There are actual vehicles that come with built-in GPS tracking, right? So if the abuser has access to that vehicle and any account connected, with that vehicle, they can easily, find out what location, where the location that the survivor, where they can easily find out where the survivor is located through that through those
Those services.
built-in GPS trackers in vehicles.
And so this without name, because we've decided that we're not going to name names in this particular episode. This is like any type of vehicle that provides premium connectivity, and
Yes,
potentially even if you're not paying for that premium connectivity, they're still
right.
getting the telemetry data. If they have a button
Absolutely.
where that you can press in the car of, hey, my car's been in a crash, please help
Yes,
me. Or if that's a
absolutely.
feature that the vehicle talks about is, hey, we can contact the emergency services if you're in an
Right.
accident, then this is
Hmm.
a car where at least at minimum the manufacturer knows where the car is. And so
Absolutely.
if somebody has an account who bought the car, even if you don't know that the service is enabled,
Yes.
it may actually be out there and active and providing location information.
Absolutely. And all of the things that you mentioned are good things, right? You definitely want to be able to, get that data if needed, right? So it's not that tech is bad, it's the misuse, right?
Yeah.
What are people doing with that information? How are they using it to cause harm to someone? So that's what we want to think about. There are even insurance companies. I know that insurance companies market to parents who have teen drivers. You want to
Yeah.
monitor how fast this young person is going, or you want to monitor what location they are, what location they're at currently. Um, sign on to this and you'll get a 10% discount, right? Who doesn't want to save money, right?
Yeah.
So if those things are, connected to the vehicle and the survivor doesn't know, that's a clear and easy way that the abuser can gain access to that information.
So really it's for survivors, it's kind of a combination of what are the looking through all the types of technology that they
Yes,
use. How does this device, does this platform have the ability to share my location? If
yes,
so, how do I find out? And that might be a little bit of a challenge that if you own a car and that it was bought by someone who you were in a previously in a relationship, even knowing whether or not it has that feature enabled,
right,
is that
right.
an issue of like going to a dealership and asking them, "Hey, how do I find out this sort of thing?" Or will they not even disclose that?
So it depends. It truly depends who's on the account, who has access to it. Yeah, that will definitely depend.
Mhm.
Probably be a case by case basis situation, but it's definitely something that survivors should consider and think about, right? So if you're a survivor and you're thinking about going to the police precinct or to meet with your advocate, maybe you shouldn't use that vehicle, right? Maybe you should use some other form of transportation in order to get to those locations, in order to seek help. So it's a lot to navigate and to
Yeah,
think about, but it's all about safety, and everyone's situation is not the same. So you definitely need to think about what is safest for you.
yeah. And
Yes.
so you were talking about kind of different ways that people could use the technology. What about we talked about uh, them using their social media, like accessing their social media accounts, whether it's to know what that person is doing, but also maybe pretending to be that person and interacting with their families, which is
Yes.
really creepy sounding to me.
Yes, absolutely. I actually had a case several years ago, many years ago. It was a family court case that I was supporting a survivor on. And the abuser, they were in a relationship for about 6 months, and the abuser gained access to some photos and posted those images on a social media platform. And basically, every time that the judge told the abuser to take down these images, every time the survivor reported, every page that the abuser created, that abuser recreated another one, I think about
Oh,
60 times,
oh
about
my
60
goodness.
times. And I want you to just think about this. This survivor at the time was searching for employment. She was a teacher searching for for employment. And this survivor had so much anxiety, and eventually it turned into depression because she felt that her future employer would Google her name or search her name or do a background check and find these images, because this person was just doing this nonstop. Just creating all of these pages, connecting to her friends and family and sharing these images. So just think about the pain and the trauma that that person is experiencing, it's something that we can't explain. So we have to think about how the impact affects the survivors'
Yeah.
daily living, their job, their functioning, how they take care of their children. If children are aware, if they're old enough, if they're online, are they seeing those images? How are they impacted? Are they experiencing bullying as a result of that? What is happening on the emotional level? Like we need to really think about that. It's not just, oh, get off of that platform, because everyone uses technology for various reasons, right? If you tell me to get off of that platform, you're cutting off my connections,
Yeah.
right? Now I'm further isolated. So it's important that we figure out how those that are causing harm can be held accountable and make sure that they're not able to, cause harm again to survivors.
So does the National Network to End Domestic Violence, do they also advocate on the political side and with making changes for laws to be more in support of domestic abuse survivors?
Yes, so we actually do have a policy team at NNEDV, and our safety net. We do advocate with tech companies around
Hmm.
their policies. There are so many different, there's so much of an intersection when it comes to this topic and this issue. So yes, that is something that we are, at the forefront of doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just kind of as we wrap up here,
Yeah.
I this is not a space that I'm super familiar with respect to providing support services for those that are the targets of domestic violence. But just based on our conversation, it sounds like people really that are deep in the midst of this really need a lot of assistance in navigating how to extricate themselves from these situations and wanting to make sure they do things in a way that doesn't result in more violence. Is this
Right.
the sort of thing that, um, like the referral system for domestic violence hotline can help people kind of
Absolutely.
plan and to make sure that they're doing things in a way that's not going to result in more violence? Because the last thing I want is someone to hear this of like and go, oh gosh, my domestic partner has access to my phone, that and therefore I'm going to change everything on it, but not have thought through what that might
Right.
entail as a
Right.
response.
Right.
Is that
Yeah.
something
So
they can help with?
yes, absolutely. The domestic violence hotline is definitely a place and a space where survivors can connect to a trained professional and be referred then to connect with an advocate. Let me just say that survivors are brilliant. They are resilient. They
Hmm.
are creative. They are very familiar with their situation, and they've been navigating and creating a safety plan throughout the time that they've
Hmm.
been in this abusive situation. So they already know how to safety plan.
Okay.
What they need is someone to walk alongside them to provide them with the support. Let them know what resources are out there. What can they get? These are your options. This is what is available. That's what an advocate can do. The advocate works alongside the survivor, but the survivor leads
Hmm.
because they know their situation best. And advocates are heroes. Their advocates are so amazing. Advocates, they are connected. They're plugged in. They know what resources are available and out there. They can, guide the survivor, provide them with information that they may not even know exists. So it's a partnership,
Hmm.
basically. So yeah,
So if we're not the survivor and we're not the advocate, what can I do or what can our listeners do to either help someone that they know that is directly in this type of situation, or people that they in general don't know? Like what can they do to help the community and
sure.
and try to help change the situation?
Wonderful. So thank you for having us here on your platform. I think that this conversation is something that needs to be had year round. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and people wear purple to create awareness around this topic and issue. But domestic violence happens 365 days of the year, so it's something that we need to be talking about all of the time. So whether it's connecting with a friend, a family member, or just building awareness. something that you can tell a family member or a friend or anyone that you know that's having this experience is that you're not alone,
Hmm.
right? Help is available. And what you're experiencing is not your fault, right? Those three things I always suggest are, really important because survivors at times feel like they're alone and what they're doing is their fault. The shame and the blame, again, that's connected to this topic and this issue, it's so heavy. And to just be there to provide them with support, not conditional support. Like if you don't leave this person today, I'm not going to be your friend or speak to you. It's not easy to leave a
Yeah.
situation, right? The cycle of violence, it's very, very complicated. It's complex. So it's not easy to just pick up and leave. But you can be there to provide them with support and to, just be a listening ear and let them know that help is available. Another thing that people can do is share some stats, let people know that this information exists. Share it on your social media, and let people know that they're not alone and help is available, because there are people, again, that are suffering in silence and they don't know where to go, who to speak to, and that they may not even identify, again, they may not even identify as a person that's a victim. They may not even
Hmm.
identify as a victim, right? They may feel like, well, this is just my circumstance and
Yeah.
situation. You want to think about people who may have grown up in these type of situations, right? They may normalize it. When we talk about young people, oftentimes young people, are experiencing domestic teen dating violence at really high rates as well. If this is their first relationship, if what they're witnessing in community and at home is violence, they may think that this is normal, right?
Hmm.
No one may not be able to. They may not know that what healthy relationships look like. So it's important that we create awareness all year round for adults and young people, and let people know that help is available.
Great.
Yeah.
And does the domestic abuse hotline also provide assistance for people who know people that are survivors of domestic abuse?
Yes. Well, I believe that
Okay.
they will, probably provide them with guidance and
Hmm.
tell them where that person can go to receive support. Yeah, I don't want to assume, but I'm thinking that that's what they would do. Provide them with the resources and information on how they could provide help to that person.
Gotcha. And what
Yeah.
is the telephone number for the domestic advice? Sorry,
Yes,
the
that number
domestic
is
violence hotline again?
the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is 800-799-7233. 800-799-7233. And our website, techsafety.org, has so many resources. We have toolkits for anyone that is working directly with survivors. We also have survivor toolkits with loads of information that survivors can, take a look at and use, as a resource.
And your organization primarily provides support not to the individuals directly outside of the
Right.
tools, but you provide support for other organizations
Right.
that provide
Absolutely.
direct services.
Yes. Thank you.
But
Yes.
you
So,
but you do
mhm,
have tools on the site available specifically for individuals who need help as well.
absolutely.
Okay.
So we do not provide direct services. We work directly with advocates and local programs, but we do have tools for survivors on our website that they can take a look at. Thank you for clarifying that.
Awesome. Audace,
Yes.
thank you so much for coming on the Easy Pray podcast today.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was wonderful being here.